Okay, students, I want to do two more examples of section 2.3 of your textbook. Um, if you remember during the lesson, previous lessons, I gave you three equations. When it comes to lines, we call the first one the slope intercept form, and then the second one is called a point slope form. And then the formula for the slope is that. So this is a formula for the slope. So we're going to use one of these three, or all three, or two of them to solve each of the previous or the two examples up. So if you notice, the first one says use a graph to write an equation. Let's go ahead and stop right there with the instructions. We come back and do the second part. So if you notice on this first graph, number one, they give us a point, and then they also give us a little something that looks like this, arrows. If you notice, slope, it just tells us, what is the difference in y divided by what the difference in x is. In other words, how much does y change divided by how much does x change. That's the slope. So the slope for example number one here is going to be 10 over 2, because the change in the y values is 10, and the change in the x values is 2. So this simplifies to 5 over 1, which is equal to 5. So I have a slope, and I also have a point. We found the slope, and we also know the point. What is the point? The point is 540. So we can use x sub 1 and y sub 1. So now that I have a slope and I have a point, we can go ahead and use the point slope formula to write the equation. So here we go. I'll do that over here because I don't have space. So a point slope formula, we have y, we need an x and a y to write an equation. Y1, if you notice right here on my point, my y1 is 40. My slope we figure out is 5. And then x is, we need an x to write an equation, and then x of 1 is 5. So we have y minus 40 equals 5x if we distribute minus 25. Okay, if we add 40 to both sides, then we're going to get that y equals 5x minus or plus 15. Looking at my graph, it does make sense that the y-intercept is 15. It's a little lower than 20, and this is called the y-intercept at 15 right there. Okay, so we're done with the first part that says use the graph to write an equation of the line. So now the second part says interpret the slope. So what does the slope tell us? So let's go back up here to the slope. If you notice that the y values is the weight and the x values is the h. So we could say that we are dividing weight by h. And because this is a positive slope, we could say that the slope tells us the following. The weight increases at a rate of 5 what? What are the units? Pounds per, or for every 1 year. Okay, so you could reword this sentence, but this is the interpretation of the slope. A few things that we want to we need to make sure that we include is the word increases. You see how the graph is increasing from left to right, so the weight is increasing, and we also know that because the slope is positive. And then also we want to make sure we include the units, 5 pounds per year. So here it is, the answer to the first one. Let's try to do question number 2 quickly. In order for me to do that, I'm going to have to erase what I just wrote. So you may pause the video to analyze everything we did for example number 1. And let me go ahead and erase this. So we could do example number 2 here. Okay, start thinking about how we're gonna go ahead and do example 2. So it's the same idea. Let's take a look at example 2 here now. What do we have? We have at least 1 point, but they also give us the arrows, the change in the x and the change in the y. So we're gonna start off with the slope. How much does the y change? That 16 right there, it shows us that the y went from 20 to 9, so the change is 16. We also know that the y values, the x values change by 4, because the number right there represents the change. So 16 divided by 4 is 4. So our change, or 4 over 1, which is 4. Our slope is 4. Now, same as the previous problem, we have a point, and that point is 4, 9. So now we can use the point slope formula, same as before. The point slope formula goes y minus y1 equals mx minus x sub 1. So from my point, I can name this x sub 1 and y sub 1, and my slope is 4. So here we go, y minus 9 equals 4x minus 4. Distributing the 4 on the right side, we get 4x minus 16, and adding 9 to both sides, we're going to find out that 4x minus 7. Now, just looking at this, I realize I have a mistake. That mistake comes all the way from the beginning where I found the slope. Notice how the graph is actually going down from left to right. So that 16 should be negative because it's decreasing, because it went down. So 16 should be negative, meaning that this 4 should be negative 4, which means this is negative 4. So my when I bring this over here, that should also be negative 4. Negative 4, and then 4 times negative 4 times negative 4 makes positive 16, and at the end of the day we just get a positive 25 here. Looking at the graph, that 25 is the y-intercept. Looking at the graph, it looks like the graph passes through 25. Now really quick, because I don't want this video to be so long, how do we interpret the slope for number 2? What is decreasing? Every watt units, every watt. So it's decreasing, number 1, because we know that the graph is going down, and also the slope was negative, even though I made a mistake. So slope, what does the slope tell us? Well, something is changing. What is changing? The number of bread is decreasing. 4, you can say 4, oops. 4 loaves per okay. So looking at the units, we were dividing number of bread loaves and by the number of cups of flour. So if we write this, it's the numbers or the words that we're looking for is decreasing because the slope is negative. Then every cup of flour is gonna be good for 4 loaves. So this is the interpretation. Something is decreasing, and it's 4 loaves for every 1 cup of flour. And that is interpretation of the slope. I hope this video helped you. You are welcome to pause it, rewind it, and watch it as many times as you need to. See you next time.